Guildhall Strings, directed by violinist Robert Salter.
剛才我哋欣賞過米福特嘅節日組曲，作品編號97，由沙德指揮海橋音樂學院弦樂團演奏。
The time right now is 32 minutes past 8, and in the studio live with me this morning, as every week, at least when I'm here, and most of the time, 99% of the time.
I have a good track record.
Yes, film critic Howard Elias. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so you have two films to review for us, and one is a Hong Kong film.
One's a Hong Kong film, yeah.
So
there's 4 films opening today, but I'm only reviewing 2 because I haven't seen one of them, and I am seeing the 4th one tonight, so I'll talk about it next week. So today I'm going to talk about what I'm calling the ad films, ad films, because both these films, Adieu and Adrift, right? So
they both start with the letter A.
They both start with AD, AD. So the first film, Adieu, which sounds French, but it's actually a local film from Hong Kong here. In Mandarin, Gao Bie Zhi Qian. So it's like before you say goodbye is the Chinese translation. And interesting film. You know, lately, well, ever since the film 10 Years came out. Did you happen to see 10 Years? A few years back.
No, but I heard so much about it.
Oh my God, yeah. Good film.
I didn't see it.
Yeah. Well, ever since that film became such a big hit and in the process got its director blacklisted across the border, many Hong Kong filmmakers have taken a more measured approach in their criticisms of both our government and the government across the border. And they're still tackling social issues, but they're doing it very subtly. And this is one of these films, Adieu. It looks at 3 people who all learn that they have cancer. And in doing so, the film sheds light, not well, mind you, but it does shed light on our city's shaky social infrastructure. Now, the story is that Yan Q, played by Gladys Lee, who was just seen in the film Big Brother, she begins her first day of work at a social services agency, and she's immediately thrown into the deep end. Her first 3 cases are a challenge. The first one is Mr. and Mrs. Zheng's 5-year-old daughter, Yan Yan, has recently been diagnosed with leukemia. There's 20-something Ka Shun, played by Hedwig Tam, who was in Weeds on Fire. She's been diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor. And there's 80-year-old Auntie Lan, played by 1950s movie idol La Lan. So if you know your 1950s and 60s Hong Kong films, you will know who she is, La Lan. She's been diagnosed with late-stage lung cancer. So now Yang Q, the social worker, manages to maintain her compassion and her optimism even as her clients struggle with having to say goodbye to their loved ones. So that's where the title comes from, Before You Say Goodbye. So, so I'm not revealing too much when I say that they have to say goodbye. Now, about the director, his name is Kenneth Lau Hao Wai, and in the last decade, in the early noughts, as they say, 00s, he was pumping out as many as 7 films a year. He was just like churning them out, but most of them have been low-budget fare. And then he took some time off to get a master's degree, not in filmmaking, but in psychology, of all things. And so this is his first film in 13 years, but he still hasn't lost his love of making films on a shoestring budget. Now, unfortunately, because it's on a shoestring, or no, not because it's on a shoestring budget, it is on a shoestring budget, but it is, and apparently it only cost him $637,000 to make. So I don't know who got paid, because that's a very low amount of money for a film. But because the film does seem cheap and amateurish, which is a little bit of a shame, because my feeling is you're talking about two very serious issues here, cancer and death, and you know, I think you need to give them their due. For example, I feel that there's a few scenes that were filmed in a hospital. I don't think it was a real hospital, but in a hospital. and there were no people walking around. Like, how hard would it have been to hire a couple of extras, to walk around, lend some authenticity to the place? But to me, that's not the worst part of the film. If you're, as I said, if you're going to tackle these heady subjects, be mature about it. Go to a pediatric cancer ward at a hospital, interview a few patients, interview a few parents who are facing this uncertainty. And guess what? There's such a thing as remission. Not everybody dies of cancer, which to me, I didn't like. To me, it was as soon as these 3 people were given their prognoses, it was like, okay, they're dead. And that's not reality anymore, thankfully. Some people do survive. So I thought that wasn't very good. Also, follow some real social workers around for a week and see what they really do, and then write about it responsibly. Don't pussyfoot around issues. Don't sugarcoat them with silly dialogue. And to me, this was the biggest issue I had with this film. It was immature. And I was very disappointed. Also, the film's a downer. I was watching this film going, this is a real downer of a film. I like sad films, but this was like depressing. So, and I kept, as I'm watching this film, I kept thinking somehow these 3 stories are going to get tied together. Yes, they're all tied together because they have the same social worker, but I thought somehow, these characters are going to interact with each other. No, they don't. It's 3 separate stories that are held together by a social worker. So, very badly written, and this story just keeps getting more and more depressing as these people get sicker. So what's the point of this film? Well, the answer comes right at the end when the 3 characters say goodbye to their loved ones in their own ways. But it's all so maudlin, especially when Mr. and Mrs. Jung use their daughter's legacy to create a sing-along prayer group for other cancer patients. Which I thought, come on, let's be realistic about this. So my feeling is that Mr. Lau, who may be listening from Taiwan, and I'll tell you about that one in a second, if you're listening, you know what? If you want to create a movie about people who face death, do it maturely. Now, as for...
But the way I introduced this before you came into the studio, when I said you were going to be on, I said it's a film that asks the question, what is the meaning of life if everyone is going to die in the end?
Yes,
so that was what I think the director was trying
That's
to
what he was trying to do.
To talk about after seeing this film.
Yes.
This subject.
Yes, I realized that's what he was trying to do, but he wasn't successful at it. You know what? I got to say something nice about this film, so I will. I don't have to, but I think I will say something nice about the film. There was cantopop singer Jason Chan, who plays the young woman's boyfriend. I thought he was really good. And he hasn't been doing a lot of acting lately because he's been focusing on his music career. I think he was the best part of the movie. So, Jason Chan, I like you. You're in my good books. My feeling is don't waste your time seeing this movie, unless you're a masochist. But I want to tell you about the director. The Hollywood Reporter reported on August 21st, so just a few weeks ago, that at least 50 investors, including the backers of this film, have claimed that the director has defrauded them of up to $1.27 million US. Lau, meanwhile, has been reported as missing since December 2017. It's believed he's hiding out in Taiwan. So this might be the last film we're going to see from him for a long time.
Well, those are all allegations, not a Hollywood Reporter.
No, Hollywood Reporter is not. It's not a rag. It's a real respectable thing. Mm-hmm. No, it's a respectable trade publication.
Okay, I have to follow up that story.
No, believe me, I will. No, it's not. It's not like National Enquirer. It's a real good magazine. So I didn't like it, but you know what? Some other people did. So let's talk about the second ad film called Adrift, which is, I call it Survivor, Pacific Ocean. It's based on the memoirs of Tammy Oldman Ashcroft. She wrote a book a few years back called Red Sky in Mourning, Mourning instead of Morning. You know the old saying, a red sky at night? You know that one? Mm-mm. Red sky at night, sailor's delight. So if you see a red sky at night, that means the weather's going to be good the next day. But if you see a red sky in the morning, that's sailors take warning.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so red sky in the morning is bad. So this is Icelandic filmmaker Baltasar Kormákur's latest film. This seems to be his style. He does these survival stories. He did The Deep a few years back. He did a film called Everest. So these are people who survive in nature.
Both of those.
Yeah, so
okay.
He's gone back to the ocean. But I do want to say, if you do not know this story, Okay? Do not, I repeat, do not Google it. Do not Wikipedia it. Because if you go see this film if you do it before you see the film, the film is ruined.
Yes.
Because there's a certain narrative structure to the film that's going to get spoiled if you know the story. So please, if you don't know the story and you want to see the film, do not learn the story. So there's my thing. I'm not going to reveal it here. So this is spoiler free. All right. Now, what I will tell you about the story is it's 1983, and Tammy Oldham, who's played by Shailene Woodley, one of my favorite young actresses, she is quite the free spirit. She's a 23-year-old San Diegan. Is that what they call people from San Diego? A San Diegan? I think that's what they say, right?
That sounds right.
I think it's right, yeah. She's been traveling around the world, and her journey has taken her to Tahiti, where she finds work sprucing up boats in the marina. And one day she meets a British fellow, Richard Sharp, played by Sam Claflin, who was in Me Before You, hated him in that film. He was in Their Finest, hated him in that film. And he's also been traveling around the world on his sailboat. Now, the pair hit it off right away, and when some friends of Richard asked him to sail their boat 6,500 kilometers to San Diego for them, for a fee, of course, right? Because that's what people do. Richard asked Tammy to join him, but you know what? She's not ready to go home yet. It was sort of weird. She's from San Diego, and they need the boat to go back to San Diego. So it was a bit of a fluke. So she doesn't want to go back, but in the end, she agrees. Now, their journey starts off well, but it's not long. I think, in fact, it's 3 weeks, according to the story. They run headlong into Hurricane Raymond, which was a Category 4 storm, hurricane, although in the film it's rated as a 5, so it was hurricane inflation. And it disables the boat and leaves...
That's Hollywood.
Yeah, that's right. It leaves... 4 is not good enough for Hollywood. It's got to be a 5. It leaves Richard severely injured. So they're stuck on the open water in the middle of nowhere, and Tammy has to rely on everything she's learned about sailing and survival to make sure they live long enough to either reach land or be rescued by a passing cargo ship. That's what the story's about. I'm not going to say anything more than that, because if I do, that's a spoiler. Now, there are obvious comparisons to a 2013 film called All Is Lost, starring Robert Redford. You might not. I don't think it came to Hong Kong, and
I didn't see that.
I actually watched it the other day because I had never seen it, and that film, All Is Lost, is fiction. This is a true story based on a true story, but I have to say, All Is Lost is a better film. It's more harrowing because the camera is right on the sailor. He's an unnamed sailor, it's Robert Redford's character, and the camera pretty much is right on him. You don't see too much of the ocean, or you just see just sort of behind him and around him and the water splashing and whatever. So it's claustrophobic. You're writing down the name of the movie because now you're going to see it, right?
No.
Oh, okay. So in Adrift, you get to see gargantuan waves, which is CGI, of course. They're impressive. But the film's focus here is on Tammy and Richard's relationship as told in flashback. The whole movie is done in flashback. So the movie starts off where the boat is already disabled, and then it flashes back and forth between how she survives and their relationship. And to me, it doesn't work because you want to feel, at least I wanted to feel, how sort of utterly hopeless it was for her out there. But yet, when you start to feel it, it flashes back, and you lose that feeling. So, whereas in All Is Lost, we're stuck with Robert Redford on the boat, and you do feel his hopelessness and how he manages to survive as long as he does. So, to me, I thought All Is Lost is a better film. I also, you know what, I said I don't like Sam Claflin as an actor. I don't think he's a good actor. I don't like him here either. Either Richard, the character, is pretty boring,
Well, that's 3 strikes.
or Sam Claflin is boring. I
I
just don't like him as an actor. So, and unfortunately, I don't think, as much as I like her, Shailene Woodley, I don't think she's strong enough as an actress. Maybe she's not experienced. She's no Robert Redford. She can't carry the film on her own. So I just thought, oh, you know what? I wanted to like this film more than I did, but I didn't. You know, I was disappointed in this film. So, you know, I'd say check it out. You know, I didn't dislike it. To me, I thought I would have much rather preferred it been told in a linear way rather than in a flashback way. But then I think if it had been done linearly, then there would have been even more comparisons to All Is Lost, because that's also done in a linear style. So, okay, I give the director props for, or the screenwriters props for doing it in a different way than All Is Lost. It just didn't work for me. So my advice is check it out. You know, if you're up at 2 a.m. on a long haul flight, for sure, watch it. You said it's already available on DVD, right?
Yes.
Yeah, amazing. So, but it is opening in the
Yes.
Yeah.
According to this printout,
it's already on DVD.
It's already on DVD.
Bizarre, but it's coming. It's opening in the cinemas today. Yeah, check it out. You know, it's but definitely, if you have a chance, go watch All Is Lost. Much better film. That's
you
it.
know, you did give it away.
I know I did, but I said it very subtly. I don't think people.
For those paying attention.
If you're paying attention, I actually
You shouldn't have been.
yes, I know. As I said it, I realized I gave it away.
Okay.
So hopefully people were not listening to me.
My best sea calamity film, I think, so far to date, has been The Perfect Storm.
That was good.
So powerful.
Yeah,
and I think
that was good.
You know, every time I watch it, I mean, I get, you know, heavy in the chest.
It's harrowing, right?
I'm just like,
you're on the boat with them.
3 times.
For sure. I thought you were going to say Titanic, and I would have smacked you.
No, I didn't like that film at all. Oh, okay, we agree on that.
Yeah. No, I would say, yeah, The Perfect Storm, good film, for sure.
Anyway, so that comes around every once in a while.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. How it lies.
All right.